You can create a business out of thin air and run it, but really you have to be able to have the foresight and intention with why I'm actually building something. Like one, I'm building it for myself and my family. Two, you're building it for the people that you employ and the ability to create opportunities within the ecosystem of your community, right? Whether it's upward mobility for team members or the ability for them to connect with other people within the community so they can like spring out and move into other opportunities for them as individuals. That's your responsibility as a leader, right? Build something massive, bring people with you. And then if they leave, are they leaving or exiting on good terms? And are you able to help them land on their feet somewhere else?
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Brotherhood Beyond Business podcast. Today, we're here with Grant of Founding Fathers. I'm going to have him dig into his personal life. We're going to talk about why he started Founding Fathers, what Founding Fathers is all about. And we're going to end with his legacy and where he's going with everything. So, Grant, go ahead and kick us off.
Hey, Trev, thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, so I'm from Prescott, met my wife in second grade, joined the military in 2006. I was 22 at the time. Spent 8 years in special operations. We had our oldest son at the time. Last couple of years in, by the time he was 2, I think I was deployed for another 3 times. So I was over there for 9 deployments, and he was 2 and I was already done with another 3. And kind of at that point, it was like, okay, do I want to continually maintain this pace, at a career level, or get out and kind of reinvent the wheel and do something different? So always loved business. Been reading business books since I was about 14, 15, and just find it fascinating with the ability and the freedom that business can give you in the sense of like everything is on the table. Your own creativity and drive and willpower really drives what your potential might be and what you're capable of doing. And there's no real guide rails. It's like the last frontier you can tackle as an individual, which is business, small business, obviously growing business, and you have to do it with a team. And so I got out in 14, started everything with a one-chair barbershop. 2 years later 16 months later, had 2 locations. And then a year after that, bought a building. A year after that, opened up the whole concept. So in the middle of COVID. But within that space, it's a 12,000 square foot building, a barbershop, 9-chair barbershop, open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, a coffee shop, a tap wall. There's a cigar lounge. There's, speakeasy. There's a jiu-jitsu studio, a gym, dance studio, men's health. So I own the majority of them. Then there's a few businesses where you find the right partnerships and like bring them into the concept. And there's alignment there with shared values and mission statements of like how they want to be perceived by the community, how they want to serve, how they want to bring people together. And then like everything, iron sharpens iron, and you're just working together as a team to kind of create an elevated experience for the end user, right?
So let's go back in time a little bit. What started, like, why barbershop? Like, why was that for you?
Yeah. So when I was 20, I moved from here out to Missouri. And so I got into hairdressing as a joke. So a buddy of mine, first day I was out there, he's like, opens up a birthday card and there's $500 cash in it. This is time frame of like 2002 or 3. And that's a lot of cash back then, especially when you're a 20-year-old kid, So I asked him where he got the money. I'm thinking it's an uncle or something like that. And he tells me it's one of his parents' friends that was a hairdresser up in Baltimore and owned a salon. And he's like, dude, this guy sends me and my brothers $500 a year since we were kids. And I was like, dude, I could cut hair. And so he tells me, I could totally see you cutting hair. So went into hairdressing, worked in a university town. There's about 6 universities or colleges in Springfield, Missouri at the time. And I was very blessed to get a job with, still to this day, a very good friend of mine, mentor, Paul Catlett. So Studio 417 out there. And he's taken that concept from like a couple chair salon into, I think it's 15, 20,000 square foot salon. And he owns 10 or 15 barbershops now. And him and his wife are great friends. They have a couple of boys, but he's about 9 years older than I am. Very motivated in the sense of business, very competent, very driven. And so worked with him for a couple of years, always wanted to go in the military, and joined when I was 22. So when I got out, I knew that was a skill set I could fall back on. And that's what happened.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's not the normal path. We see a guy your size, it's probably not that normal thing. People are like, he's going to be a barber, but like, it's not, I mean, it's a great profession. Service in general. Like, I think a lot of people, we went into this 2010 on, people went into this true white collar stuff, right? And everybody's investing in white collar jobs. And now white collar is kind of being destroyed by AI and stuff. And we're looking at the true service-based industries, from plumbing to electrical to barbershops to even like things like coffee shops and things of that nature, like are really the foundations of a community that people kind of forget about. So when you were designing Founding Fathers, did you have the initial idea these were the different businesses you want? What kind of got you into, obviously you're doing a barbershop already. I thought, okay, coffee shop, like what kind of created the design, the speakeasy and all that stuff?
Yeah. So I got out in late 14, I think August timeframe. I opened up the barbershop in December. It was a one-chair shop with, like I said, with about 16 months, went to 2 locations. But my goal was always, how do I maximize the footprint of what I'm doing and create a master plan third space? And so that's kind of where the concept came from. And for me, looking at third spaces, it's like, where do people congregate within a community? And it's in the space of hospitality, right? It's like gyms, it's coffee shops, it's bars, it's restaurants, barbershop, salons, stuff like that. And so I've a huge passion for growing business and obviously empowering teams, but really a service to other people and like creating a cohesive brand and concept that will collect the right type of people. And you really can't do that outside of hospitality. So there's plenty of other ways to make money and provide for yourself or your family within the business space. For me, like I said, I love people. I love the ability to create something unique that has some complexity to it. Nothing's new. Everybody knows coffee shops and bars and restaurants and you name it. But where it gets unique and a little bit more difficult is like, how do you bring everything under one roof to where it works synergistically and cohesively, and it's a seamless experience for the client or the customer or the member on a daily basis, and then you're creating a space where people come back and frequent, every day, several days a week for a myriad of different reasons, whether they want a coffee, they want to go to the gym, or they want a cocktail, they want to come down for a date night or play games or utilize the spaces like we're in right now where they can be productive and work in what they're doing for their profession. And so that was the goal. So here we are 6 years later, we're getting ready to revamp the whole concept. We're doing a massive remodel. Should be submitting to the city here within the next month. That'll be a whole 800 square foot kitchen, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, an entirely new bar within the speakeasy, revamping covered back patio, all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be about a $2.5 million project build out. And then from that concept, the goal then is to grow into other markets. So hit Prescott Valley, hit 6 or 7 locations down in Phoenix, and then just start taking the model to other locations. So,
yeah, I've always looked at scaling businesses, but when you look at scaling businesses, most people go for the ones that are low ticket to scale, right? Where yours is a high ticket scale, right? Like cost wise, because just for an addition here is going to be $2.5 million. I don't think people realize how much money has to be invested in these ideas, right? I think the average person that's watching this that's in Prescott, they probably want to know more about founding fathers and that kind of stuff. But it's the side behind that. I like to really point out to people like what are the struggles like these business owners go to make these awesome things happen in the area that people don't realize? Because as entrepreneurs, we kind of know that journey that there's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of not taken pay behind it, right? There's a lot of people think you own this big location or making, let's just call it make millions, like Grant's really crushing it. But the amount you've had to invest back into it, people don't even realize. And so just talk about some of the, I wouldn't call pitfalls. What are the struggles of building something like this and even keeping this going?
Yeah, a lot of that is you need vision and clarity. And so you need to understand what's your end goal. I had a dear friend of mine who's known me since I was a kid. I grew up with his sons, but he was my CPA for the first several years. And when I was getting started in business, one of the first books he gave me and highly recommended was The E-Myth, and read that book. But one of the pieces of advice he said to was, hey, you need to build this thing with an exit in mind. So you can't you can create a business out of thin air and run it, but really you have to be able to have the foresight and intention with why am I actually building something? One, I'm building it for myself and my family. 2, you're building it for the people that you employ and the ability to create opportunities within the ecosystem of your community, right? So whether it's upward mobility for team members or the ability for them to connect with other people within the community so they can spring out and move into other opportunities for them as individuals. That's your responsibility as a leader, right? Build something massive, bring people with you. And then if they leave, are they leaving or exiting on good terms? And are you able to help them land on their feet somewhere else, right? the vision and goals that I have for Founding Fathers as I'm growing it, they're mine because I want to see if what I'm capable of doing as a person. What can I build as a man? How can I make a massive impact in the local community? Who can I do it with? How are we going to do it? What's the impact that we leave? What's the legacy we leave? But on top of that, the people that I employ, what do they want to do? Are they willing to go along for the ride and be a part of the brand and what we're doing and service to other people? Or do they need the job for a year or two as a placeholder until they, graduate college or they move on to something else? It's a lot easier to define that when you have clarity of what you're doing and what people's personal, professional, financial goals are and where they want to go. And then everything's laid out on the table. So when the time comes that they might leave, I'm already aware of that. And it's like, dude, let me figure out how to help you out. You said you've been wanting to do this for a year and a half. The time's come. I've made the proper introductions for them. They can then spring into another opportunity that, is more vectored in a vein or focus that they want to get to. So it's fun to do business in that capacity because everything is kind of seen on the table. And it's not like as the business owner or the entrepreneur, you're holding everything tight-handed and in fear constantly of losing good people. It's like, hey, you have to invest in the people knowing that they're going to leave. But if they can leave better than when they got there, then you're doing something right as the owner, as the operator, as the entrepreneur. So
Do you find it a struggle at all in a smaller town like Prescott to find the talent that you need to keep growing this thing?
I've always heard that. I haven't really found that. We haven't found it as a team. A huge part of that, though, is we're very clear on like what our mission, vision, values are, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to incorporate, how we're helping the people out, the type of people we're looking for within the organization. And so because we have that level of clarity, we know exactly who we want to hire. And we're very clear on, because of those mission, vision, values, like this is what we hire and fire by. And so everybody on our team knows that there's a healthy level of balance, healthy level of accountability. It's a fun work environment. And so I haven't seen really having any problems with finding the right people because we just know who we're looking for. And so we tend to attract those type of people into our organization, right? You want people who are proactive as an individual, who have hobbies, who have some level of ambition or drive in their own personal lives. And they're not just here to check in and check out, right? The goal is, how do you create an ecosystem that provides opportunities for people within the vertical stratosphere of what you're building, but also opportunities outside if they need to leave. And you need to cultivate that. But more importantly, you need to teach them how to cultivate it within themselves to where they are figuring out how to goal set. They're figuring out their own autonomy. They're figuring out how to find drive and motivation to excel in their own lives. And it's a harder way to do business, but it's far more fun and it's far more impactful when you can like speak into other people's lives and get them motivated about their own life and like what they're capable of doing.
Yeah. And I think one thing that, like you said, reason you haven't found an issue that I've seen for other businesses over the time I've worked in business coaching and stuff is when you have a vision truly where you're going, you create its own referral system of like employees that start referring good quality people to you because they want to work with them. You come with members that are like, oh, I love my son worked here kind of thing. Yeah. So you build that culture comes first, and the great talent actually usually follows it. Whereas most businesses go chase after the great talent, hoping it will improve their business instead of the reverse process. So I love how you kind of approach that. Like, we're going to go through the values and standards first, and we will cultivate the right people, and you're growing those people versus expecting them to come. I think in a small community like Prescott, people get a little bit wrong in this idea is it's going to be really hard to attract great talent from like Phoenix to come up because homes are expensive here. There's not maybe as many kids here comparable to maybe Phoenix. So sports and stuff aren't as diverse. So there's other reasons why talent might not want to come. There's a lot of talent here that can be homegrown into that. And the average business though doesn't want to invest in the people like you are.
Yeah. When you're a smaller business or when you're getting started, so much of that responsibility falls on the leadership, right? Like it's your ability to cultivate and kind of set the precedence and the cadence and the vision of where you want to go and how you're going to get there, who you're doing it with. But you need to bring your team with you. And that means you have to invest into, what they're doing and how to do it properly within the organization. You have to empower them. You have to set that left and right limits of what that looks like, success or fail. And then you have to be able to ultimately trust them to do the right thing. Everybody wants to be seen as a competent person. They want to be seen and trusted for why you put them in that position. And something that might take me 5 steps to figure out on the floor, somebody can figure it out in 2 or 3. And it's like, well, I don't need to be hamstrung to my own proclivities or not proclivities, but my own naivete or my own ego on, hey, this is the proper way to do it. It's like, hey, this is what's worked for me. Maybe you can figure it out faster, or maybe they do it in 7 steps instead of my 5, or they do it in 2 or 3 steps instead of my 5. But as long as the job is done and they feel like they have the autonomy to get it done correctly, that's what you want. You want people who can think for themselves, problem solve themselves, and they're not constantly hitting a wall and then immediately, instead of problem solving, it's like, I'm just going to go ask the leadership team. I don't know how to do this, because then as a leader, you're constantly getting drugged back into like having to fix basic things that, you've learned over time, and you need to empower your team to do that for you so you can continually grow and get to those next levels.
Yeah, I think maybe your military background helps with that a little bit, like trying to get people to own their own skill. But I think the average, specifically white collar group of people, they're so used to I'm just going to create an SOP. This person's going to follow that SOP. The issue comes in, problem solving doesn't happen in SOPs. Yeah. So you still have to have an SOP and get that idea laid out. However, I don't think the average business owner is really empowering their team. They want to have this high level of control. Mm-hmm. Mistake goes wrong, they want to come down on these guys versus hey, that was a mistake. Let's figure out how we're going to fix this. You come with the answer on how to fix it. I would say for the majority of business owners don't think that way.
Yeah. You have to be, ideally you come to a lot of different problems you can come with solutions, but your goal is to cultivate a culture to where you're allowing your team to create their own solutions. There's always going to be problems. Doesn't matter where you're at. That's just the human condition of businesses or life in general. So can you get individuals to think for themselves and problem solve for themselves and feel like they have the autonomy and the authority to make the right decision? And at the end of the day, even if they make the wrong decision or poor decision, it's not like that's going to tank the business. And it's okay. We all learn through failure or a setback. That's the best way to learn, right? You do something, you make a decision, it's a poor decision or it's the wrong decision. How quickly can you adapt, overcome? How resilient are you as a person? And so if you don't teach people how to do that or invite them into a better version of themselves, then you're constantly setting yourself up to be like the nanny, right? Or the constant parent. And at some point, if we're all adults, it's like, I don't want to be constantly watched over and being told what to do and not trusted to be competent in my skill set or my job. So.
Yeah, I was actually talking to somebody recently about salaries for employees, and they're talking about, well, I don't think they do more to be worth more money to me. And I said, well, the biggest obstacle you're running into is one, you're not giving them the ability to do more. You're only giving them the ability of what you want for parameters on this person. But even if you just open up somebody's ability to do more in your business in general, sometimes they don't even want more pay. They just want the ability to, like you kind of said, why are you pushing founding fathers to this limit? How far are you going to go with it? Because you want to reach your full potential, what you're capable of, challenge yourself. Everybody has that challenge. It just looks different in their life on how that challenge looks.
Yeah. And it's not like what your full potential is until you hit it. And then are you capable of going further? And are you capable of going further? And so the pursuit for me as an individual, as a man, is what am I capable of achieving in the sense of how big can I grow a concept? How many people can I employ? How many people can I empower? How many people what are the opportunities within what I'm building that really provides longevity to where people are I can see a career here. I started here and I exited here and I have, a Roth IRA or I have a retirement or I have medical, what other reason is there to grow a business than actually growing it for it to be successful for the owner, operator, and for the rest of the team? You can't do anything without people. So you need to understand the vehicle that's going to get you to where you're going as people.
So as a father, you have 3 kids?
Yes.
Yeah. So what are the obstacles you see? Because I kind of look at a business like this, there's probably more later hours than the average business owner thinks about. Also possibly more early mornings. What are some of the obstacles you've seen as being a father, running one of these businesses, and how have you talk to your family, hey, these are the obstacles, these are why I'm doing this, the idea, teaching your kids why we do the work we do. What's kind of your philosophy on the family and how you kind of attack that?
I just incorporate my family into what I'm doing. So I have 3 kids, 14 down to 9, 14, 11, and 9. And so, they hang out at the business. They're always hanging out, talking, conversing. I'd much rather put them in that atmosphere that we've created where you're collecting good people. And then my children, by by being in that atmosphere ecosystem, they're conversating with adults or thinking differently or processing or learning how to conduct themselves as younger people as they navigate their way through age and through maturity. And I think it's a very healthy environment by just including them in what we're doing instead of trying to, hey, you guys can't come around here or you need to be home. And they might get in the way here and there. That's children, but it's okay. Like you have to figure out how to have that. We all hear that term work-life balance, but the reality is like, there's no such thing. You're always going to be working. You're always going to be thinking of something to problem solve or fix. And you just need to include your family in on that story of what you're doing. Ultimately the legacy I'm trying to leave with on the business, of course, is going to affect my family. But if I can't steward and lead my family, then I'm not going to do a good job doing it at the business side. So I just incorporate both and love having my kids around, love introducing them to people, love the ability for them to have conversations and talk with people that are, 10, 15, 20 years older and actually carry on in some capacity, a dialogue. And even if it's not them just simply being scared of adults, like not knowing how to conversate or ask questions or articulate themselves. Those are good skill sets to have. And I don't know of a better atmosphere to learn that than within the hospitality space where your job is service to other people, but it's also dealing with people who might be persnickety or have issues with, something went wrong here or it goes wrong there. And how well can you receive the criticism or the critique or the problem and turn it into a win, looking for the opportunity to turn it into a win. And the reality of business in general, it doesn't matter. I tell this to my team all the time, but it doesn't matter what you're doing in the context of how you provide for yourself, whether you're a doctor, an attorney, a plumber, a construction worker, a barista. That's what you're doing to provide for yourself. But the business, we're all in this people. So the faster you can realize that and understand it, you realize that's how you're going to get the traction and the momentum you need in order to grow as an individual or to grow other people around you. Like most of the problems or most of the solutions you're looking for, you have to have the gumption and the drive to figure it out. But you also understand like there are going to be people that are a little older, a little wiser, maybe one or two or five rungs up the ladder than you when it comes to success, whatever that might look like. They've been there, they've done it. And if you have the humility to just ask for help or guidance, you're going to get there far faster through working with people than trying to just bash your head into the same wall,
I mean, what you're doing there is exactly what my dad did. So he owns a big manufacturing corporation. When we were kids, like I just remember, you just go to the factory, you do the work, you're just around there, you're goofing around. But also we learned to weld at a young age that most kids didn't get that experience. You got to learn how to do AutoCAD, all the things that it stimulated creativity for me as a kid to learn all these different skill sets. Now, when I was in school, maybe that stuff wasn't as interesting, but when I was at the factory, like all this stuff is cool because I can see how that stuff's being put together, how I'm actually using it in the real world. And for your kids, the advantage is like, hey, this is, maybe when I'm in school, some of the stuff will be interesting, but it'll portray back to like, I was talking to this older guy that was like reading these books. I'm like, oh man, that's really cool. And then maybe they're more interested in that stuff. So getting them in environments where they can actually see how life skill sets work. I think that's one of the biggest issues with kids before college is they go to college thinking they know what they want to do, but have never experienced any parts of life. And they get out of college and be like, oh, wow, I need all these other skill sets that I have no idea how to do to actually just to do any business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can have a certain level of intelligence. Obviously, that's going to get you pretty far. But your emotional intelligence or your relational intelligence carries a lot of weight. You can make up for a lot of things with just hard work and determination. Intelligence plays a key factor, but if you don't know how to relate to other people or show some level of emotional intelligence with people that are around you, your peers, people that are above you, people who are below you, whatever it might be, you're only going to get so far, And so you're going to hit a point of stagnation of Peter's principle where you're kind of stuck and you have to get out of your own way to figure out like, do you have the humility to figure out, okay, I'm stuck or I'm at a point where I haven't been before. And can you figure out how to like pop into a different vertical or pop over and reinvent yourself or continually refine yourself. And that is the pursuit of life, right? Ideally, I'm not the same man now in my 40s as I would be in my 70s or 80s. And I'm not the same man in my 40s as I was at 15 or 20 or 25. So you should always constantly be pursuing like refining yourself, adding value to yourself, refining who you are, your character, your growth, your intelligence, your educational level. And if not, life gets really boring, right? So
Yeah, I mean, if any young
curiosity is,
if there's a young person watching this at all, I think for most successful entrepreneurs, it's pretty rare that the first business that we go into, the first location we go into is actually where we end up. But it's kind of like building skill sets over time. Like I got to get this skill set to almost go to that next skill set to you're just accumulating skill sets long enough to really develop enough to like, hey, I can own some component of this, or I have enough mission behind what I want to do to go that next phase.
Yeah, I think I was reading statistically, I think our generation and maybe a little older, most people in the workforce, it's somewhere on like 40 different jobs they rotate through their life. Whereas we go to our grandparents and it's like 2 or 3. Yep. They kind of got to the factory or whatever it might be, and they stuck in that type of career path for 15, 20 years because the opportunities largely weren't there, or because the lack of awareness or understanding of what's around them because they just didn't have the internet. They didn't have the ability to understand like, dude, I can do this or I can do that. And so in today's day and age with the modern era, some of the positives with social media or the internet is the ability to really understand opportunities that are out there and then how to figure out how do I get there? Like, do I want to do this job? I can do this step and then I can ladder over here. And it's because of connectivity. So
no, and it's the idea that you talked about a lot is like hard work. You just got to consistently put your head down in a sense of whatever you're doing, be in whatever you're doing for a long enough period of time to develop a really strong skill set, not worrying about what the next job is. And I think even for us as like you're building out Founding Fathers to a bigger thing, I'm working on building the Brotherhood to a national level. It's the idea is like we still have to have our feet where they're at. Like we got to build whatever this current model is to capacity to prove that this next stage. So for you guys, like here's what Founding Fathers, almost like your vision. Here's what it needs to hit for me to feel confident to now just go to PV. Yeah. And then we have these metrics, not just like just because you have a good idea means it scales. It's like, no, there's a lot of hard work that goes from stage to stage. And for anybody working jobs, a lot of hard work to go from job to job to job and build that skill set. But you got to just give it time. And for me, it's like follow God's mission, right? Like wherever God's mission is taking you, that's kind of you just got to be listening long enough to hear. So
yeah, absolutely. Your ability to, scale something at any level, you have to put in all that hard work on the back end, like how do you replicate the KPIs, the metrics, what are the SOPs? What's the standards? What are the roles and responsibilities for each one of the positions? What's the cost incurred to go into purchasing a building compared to like leasing or renting? What's the bill out cost? What's the economic value in the community we're going into? What's the median household income? What's the demographics? How many people are in this area or region? Is it sustainable? If I open up one in Prescott Valley, am I going to cannibalize from this location 10%? Is that sustainable? Or is it going to be like 50%? And then we tank both locations. So you have to be very wise with what you're doing. And I don't know all the answers, but the reality is like, I know people that do, or I know companies that help you scale and do this stuff properly. So that's where it's worth that front end investment to figure out how do I do this properly to where I don't fail and break, and then create those opportunities vertically within the business to continually grow and offer long-term benefits and value to the people on our team.
Well, with today's social media, the problem that you see is like these things scaling so fast, or these people growing, making millions of dollars so fast. But I don't remember where I saw it exactly, but the average millionaire starts their business at 42 years old, and they've had to build enough skill sets up a long enough period of time to be able to even create whatever that business is. And then that business doesn't turn into $1 million business until like they're 52. So it's like a 10-year window of time of them like proving these ideas versus the ones that are scaling super fast. I've seen a lot of businesses go out of business real fast because they saw an idea, it did well to start off with, they scaled so fast, which is like what your guys are doing. It's like, hey, we're going to get all these metrics figured out. Scale can happen really fast when you have the right model and like, okay, we've proven it multiple times. Now we can go, this thing could take off with just finances at that point. Yeah. But the scalability is not how much money you can get from other people. The scalability is the model working efficiently right each spot. So that way when you invest the money in, you don't lose all that money.
Yeah, very, very true. And that's a whole nother level and a game to play in business, which extremely piques my curiosity of like, what am I capable of doing? And how do we do this together as a team? And how does the concept grow? And like I said earlier, you can't do anything without people. So if you're trying to create something that has massive value to the organization, to all the team members, to the community, which is what a business does. It serves the community at some capacity, wherever it might be. I'm a dentist, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, plumber, electrician, barista. You're adding value to the people within the team, and then by extension, the people that want your services. And so as an individual, it's like, I believe I'm capable of more. I'm up for the challenge. I love a good challenge. Life is challenging. So it's like, let's just keep going. Like what can I capably hold myself to, and how, when I hit my own Peter principles, how quickly can I adapt and overcome and pivot and make the right decisions, and keep moving in some direction, obviously in a growth trajectory. So.
And that's what you're saying right there is exactly what makes entrepreneurship fun to me. The average person sees a business like, oh, they get freedom of time. It's not as free of time as people think it is. They get freedom to make how much money they want in a sense, but there's a lot of like putting back into the business for a long period of time to actually make the wages that people think you might make. But for us, like people like us, it's like, man, it's endless. Whatever I can do is up to what I'm capable of doing and what I'm capable of building other people to do. So it's all on me, which I think is the most fun part. It's the game, like being a former athlete, like it's the only thing left I have that's truly competitive, where it's like, it's only me versus me, really. It's not me versus other businesses, but it's me versus me and competing to become the best version of what I can do. And that's what's like, what wakes you up every day is like, that's super exciting because it's all on me. And that's actually really fun.
Well, completely agree, man. There's only a small minority of people in the world, in America, that can really step out and risk it all. You have to have a high risk tolerance in order to open up your own business, in order to grow it. Opening is not, you're wearing all the hats, so you have to understand the finance, the management, all the structures, the SOPs. You have to be the technician. And then you slide in another person, and then you have to figure out like, okay, how do I train this person to do or replicate one or two or three of my tasks? Then it's another person, then it's another person. And so everything rises and falls in leadership, right? How well can you create a culture that you're empowering your team, but also invested in your team's success and like teaching them to succeed, and giving the grace needed where need be when they might mess up. We all do, it's fine, but I think it's one of the best, worthiest causes you can do as a human being is like create something out of nothing, right? And it's controlled chaos. I love it. Coming from the military side, I think my brain was definitely rewired and working in that environment for so long in the special operations community. And so this whole notion of going back into working as a civilian and doing a 9 to 5, I just can't do it. Like I have to work kind of just all the time doing something productive and having the flexibility to like I said, today I hopped on a call regarding some business at 6 a.m. for a Zoom call. It was supposed to be an hour. It went almost 2 hours. Then it came over here, and it's like, so you're creating time. How do you maximize your time? How do you maximize your schedule? When can you fit things in? When you're focusing in the business, on the business, outside the business, growing the business, who are you doing it with? So it's a fun place to be, but it's not for everybody. And, most people in life they have a stabilizer personality. They want stability. They want to know the left and right limits. They want to just show up and perform, be relied on to do it. And if you thrust them into a chaotic position of like, hey, you have to take ownership of something and run and manage and problem solve on the fly, that's a very uncomfortable place for a lot of people to be in. So it's definitely a mindset. I would assume you probably have to be born with it, but at some level too, you probably had to experience a lot of adversity in your life in order to do it well. And because there's always going to be setbacks, or there's going to be problems or unforeseen issues that you're going to have to come up with solutions that you haven't before, and keep your wit about you while everything else is failing. Like the famous poem by Rudyard Kipling, If. I don't know if you've ever read that. Fantastic. It's one of my favorite. But can you keep your wit about you while everything else is failing? And it's a difficult place to be in, but it's also extremely rewarding and very exciting to really understand, like, what am I capable of doing? Am I capable of moving to the next level? So.
Yeah. And the thing I'm going to put out there for other business owners is decide that like the average person in your life, I would say not even average, majority of people in your life won't understand the mindset that we have. Like my wife, she didn't come from an entrepreneur family. I did come from an entrepreneur family. So my family understands like kind of the cost trade-off. My wife, when we first started doing it, she didn't come from that. So when stuff would get a little chaotic, she'd like, oh, are we going to be okay? I'm like, honey, and we're always okay. Like I have no doubt. I will bet on myself every single day, and twice on Sunday, I will do it every single time because every single obstacle that comes up, there's a way out of it. Worst case scenario, I have to go work for somebody else and I'm the best employee they've ever had. Like, big deal, but I'm probably not going to do that. Right. So it's just like the idea of betting on yourself. And like you talked about a little bit, I think from like your different experience with people that you're over life and people that are still in your life is like having a circle of people that you can rely on that are at that level or higher than that level is a valuable tool for you. Like we call it kind of like your circle is your ceiling. Like you have to have people that surround you that kind of, you still have to have some people that you can go to, like, because I don't have a lot of people I can talk to about the chaos. It's nice to have people that do understand chaos. Like, dude, it's fine. You're going to be fine. And usually they're pep rally, like, dude, you're going to be fine. Just get over it. You get over yourself. Yeah. So it's kind of nice to have that circle. Do you have a circle like that?
Yeah, I do. I have several really close friends that are all entrepreneurs or business owners. So they understand the stress and the chaos of managing what they're building.
Let's start to wrap up.
But they understand the stress and of what they're building. And so the positive is like we can talk at that same level. It's just that finding the other individuals for us, it's like my circle is going to be a bunch of my male friends, but you find the people that are your peers, then ideally you can find a circle that is above you by a generation or so, 10, 15 years, 20 years that have gone through what you're doing. And then when you're griping up, they can help you reframe it because all of them have been there before. So if they're good or if they persisted and, persevered and had resiliency, they popped out the other side, but they all have the same stories. Dude, I almost failed here, went a debt over here, had to borrow money here, had to leverage this, had to sell this. And then if they just kept with it, at some level, they pop out 10, 15 years later, 20 years later. And so it's good to have your core group of buddies that you're going through the chaos with, but then also can you find mentors or older men that have experienced that, once or twice or three times, like, hey, I started a business here, multiple businesses, exited, and you can glean information from them and realize like, dude, everybody goes through this. It's not just another that is experiencing this setback or this problem or this issue. It's like, that is par for the course. It is controlled chaos. How quick can you identify the issues, come up with something that is a reasonable solution and then execute on it, because action and momentum it's needed. You have to make action, massive, clarity on what you're doing and move forward, get off the X. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, having older mentors is something I think most people kind of has, like, they're not doing business now. Yeah. But the chaos they went through is just as chaotic as you did. And like you said, a lot of times it'd be kind of like you're kind of just whining because realistically, you got 3 more steps where you have to really worry and you're a long ways away from that. So it is cool to have that. Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap up. I want to kind of end on, where are you going? Where's Founding Fathers going? Like you kind of talked about a little bit. What's the future of where you're going on your path?
Yeah, the goal is submitting to the city. Ideally, we start the entire remodel at the end of the year. So, you have to deal with the city and refinance the bank, all this other moving pieces in order to get it to the next level. Based on the timelines, red lines with the city and recapitalizing and reinvesting back in the business, we're talking November timeline. Build out should be around 5 or 6 months. We did the entire build out for Founding Fathers Collective, and it was from start to finish, gutting the entire building, and everything was brand new. That was 8 months. So all we're doing is like the south side of the building. So I think reasonably 6 months. It's going to be, quite a large project, but we can compartmentalize it and break it into rooms without having to shut down the whole place. So it should be open, late spring 2027. And then during that phase and timeline, then it's really focusing on, okay, how do we start identifying where the next locations are? How are we going to do that? How are we going to fund it? What does that look like? Templating out the entire business model to understand everything we talked about earlier, like the correct SOPs, what the financial targets are for each one of the concepts, how everything's codified under one roof, what the technology package is. I mean, absolutely everything. It's all the fun business stuff that you need to understand and identify and have clarity on in order to grow to that next level. And I really want to get to Prescott Valley because it's right in our backyard. And ideally that would be like the flagship, meaning, hey, the template of that 50,000 square feet is home in Prescott. This was the proving ground in Prescott, but Prescott Valley is like where the flagship is. And then Peoria, because that's north and they've done a phenomenal job of building out their infrastructure, on how they're going to grow as a community, but then identifying key locations down in the valley. So like Chandler, Gilbert, Mesa, Phoenix, Scottsdale. So hit those areas.
Very cool. So let's go ahead and leave 70% of our viewership are business owners. So just talk just a quick little thing about like what business memberships you guys have here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so we have three different business levels. So we have the membership or the speakeasy was built with intention of collecting the right people. I hate bars, and when I bought my liquor license and then built out the whole concept and knew I was going to do a bar, it was my biggest consternation was how do I do this well to where it's not a race to the bottom or degrading in the sense that you're only seeing the worst in people, but how are you adding value and bringing people into the concept, the right people, right? So the goal was really just finding productive people within the community, largely within the business space who are still working and productive and like understand economically like what their focus is and then what's going on in the greater area. And so the goal is to attract those type of people and put them into a room, in the extension of Founding Fathers Collective, and then they're doing life together. They're doing business meetings. They're working within the space. They're hosting parties. They're coming to parties. So the three different levels, like a solo, which is 3,000. It's easier to find all the information on the website. So if you just go to foundingfatherscollective.com, you can find the memberships. And then we set up a meeting. There's only 3 of us that sell memberships. So our goal, of course, is how do we maintain the culture within the speakeasy and find the right people that see value in what we're doing? How can we add value to them as individuals or collectively as maybe their team, and then bring them on board? So our retention rate for 6 years in with the concept being open is about 84% year over year. So that's pretty phenomenal for retaining a membership level status. And then I know as the whole revamp happens, there'll be massive amount of clarity and new stuff that we're offering for the memberships.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been a member almost a year now, and you guys are just every single month just gotten better and better, more events coming on, just like little things that make a huge difference. For me, I've grown majority of our business just out of there. Even just being able to use these rooms have been really beneficial to like being like, hey, we're going to do it at Founding Fathers. Well, everybody knows where that's at, And the ones that don't, it's kind of cool. Business owners walk in and be like, whoa, I didn't know this thing was here. That's kind of cool too. Like, yeah, guys, like this is, and then we talk about business memberships a little bit because like it's valuable because then I'm hanging out here. I'd love if you guys hung out here too, because then we have a chance to talk business and do things together and like sometimes work side by side while you're working on projects. I can work on stuff. So it's a cool, I look at it obviously from a personal side for people in the area. It's really cool. But as a business owner, it's very unique because it's a spot where we can actually come together, hang out, do business together. I think more business owners need to do business together, just instead of just trading leads, actually doing business together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is what Founding Fathers is. It's like, how do you create the proverbial table that everybody can participate in? And somebody needs to own that space. And so I created the space, and everybody else that's in business, sometimes it's a little awkward when it's like, I have to go to his office or he has to come here, or where do we find the random coffee shop we can go to, or maybe over dinner. And that's fine. But the focus and the goal for Founding Fathers Collective was creating like a master plan third space that collects individuals within the community, that brings them together. And that, ideally we're sharpening each other, right? Like your water bottle says, iron sharpens iron. So you're bringing people together that then can be productive in each other's lives or their own lives, but you're doing it through an organic level of networking that's the best way to move the needle, right? It's like, how can I meet people? How can I genuinely be interested in them, their stories? And where's the synergy between what you or I might be doing that we can then work together to like, hey, I'll support you over here because you got this type of business. You support me over here, and your network continues to grow and like everybody's succeeding. So
yeah, that's a unique thing in Prescott, like where I came from in Illinois. Just doesn't happen that way. So even like the Phoenix thing, when you go to Phoenix, creating a space like that, and you almost have to train people a little bit in the community. Like this is something that's actually okay. Like small communities can do that. Big communities get almost trained people to go into that. So that's an obstacle that you guys will have to figure out as you go to.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I appreciate your time today, Grant. Guys, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Brotherhood Beyond Business podcast. You can find Founding Fathers Collective at foundingfatherscollective.com, all over the place on social media as well. Follow their stuff, join their memberships, come hang out with us. Talk to you guys later.
Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in. Brotherhood is more than business. It's about leading from the front, leveling up in every domain, and becoming the CEO of your own life. Step up, execute, and we'll see you in the next one.